Okay, sick. We're in. We're doing a thing. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Gotta stream. Utmost importance today. No camera. Surprise. Let's see, got that up. That's all there. Sucks, all my thumbnail formats disappeared. Whatever. I can put my keyboard down and we can get right into it. Okay, let's see. What are we doing? Flying for fun. Flying because I want to. I want to see Med Coast. Helicopter for the Med Coast. Obviously something with some sort of... Yeah, the goat is back. I realized on my relatively inactive YouTube channel that I was near threshold of watch hours for monetization. So I have to fly some to save the shop. I've done the Sikorsky. We'll do an American helicopter. But yeah, plus I think I'm going to stream tomorrow morning. I got to refigure out my thumbnails. I've been using Pixlr, the free online Photoshop thing, but I cleared my cookies and cache and everything. And I think it got rid of all my thumbnail, like, formats that I had done, because all my around the world formats were all the same. Yeah, it's good to be back. See, I kind of lost all my thumbnail format, so I need to recreate it because I like to keep the same style, obviously. Goodness, that's a busy airport. Where would we be? This seems like FBO-ish area over here. Ooh, it's a long flight. I don't think I want to fly that far. Montpellier. Nice. There's Cannes. Cannes. This Monaco should be right here. It's kind of the goal to come here to Monaco. Yeah, definitely not doing that. But what we can do is fly to Nice. Nice, nice. Fly out of Nice or nice. Isn't it close? Yeah. I'm just here exploring. We're not here on any official business. We do what we want. Yep, I'll do my best, dude. Thanks for stopping in. We'll go over some stuff today for anybody who wants to hang out and watch and understand some things. We'll do it. Let's see. I don't think Cowan has an exterior pre-flight on this one. Let's see. There's no covers. I feel like they could have done the finish a little bit nicer on that, but that's not a me thing. Shift C. Okay, in it. Let's go. Remember where everything's at. Battery on. Master start on. AC/DC. Cool, that doesn't matter. 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 Sick. Engine crossfeed on. Cool. I'm fighting my VR headset here to an extent as well. Do I have fuel pumps down here? Nope. Engine control auto prime. Cool. Pumps are priming. Move those to prime. Move those to direct now. I think I gotta do this one with my mouse because of the way it is. There we go. You have to like click, then right click on it. Get that up to flight idle. Click, right click. Get that just into flight. Main oil gearbox. Cool. That's good. Let's take the parking brake off. Welcome to the stream, guys. I see you got a few of you in here. What's going on? We're in Nice, France, which is a nice area. And really, I just want to fly some today. Haven't flown in the sim on stream in a while. I have been flying in real life. I have been flying on the stream, not on stream, on the sim some, just for personal things. But wanted to do some of this, you know. Let's see, we'll just assume tower's going to ask for permission to pick up here. We can take gear up. But yeah, anybody watching has any questions about flying? I am an actual pilot. AC generator on. There we go. But yeah, wanted to fly some for the stream. Obviously, minorly selfish. because I want to keep the channel going. You know, it's nice to have a little channel thing happening here and there to keep me up on stuff. But I've been busy with real life flying. Apparently I've also forgotten how to speak during my time. Wow, South France, kind of cool looking. I haven't really explored over here. Yeah, I'm doing real life flight training as well. I am a rated pilot, so we can pick up and go fly anytime in real life. But I'm working on instrument now, which is a completely different story, especially as I'm trying to save as much money as possible and training in a Robbins R22, which if you're not aware, it's the little two-seater helicopter that and you can barely fit yourself and an instructor in, and it makes it quite exciting trying to do instrument procedures in a helicopter that doesn't have all the good instrument procedure gauges and stuff in there. There are other ones at the school, but they're down for maintenance or are at another location or something, so I'm using our least equipped R22 for instrument training, which I'm able to get some of the stuff done. There's a bridge. Let's go with a steep mountain on the upside. You know what that means. Ooh, that might be too thin for us. Never stopped me before. Maybe on the down slope. So yeah, been doing instrument training, and let's be real. Putting on foggles, which are just view restricting safety glasses. Kind of tape off or paint off some safety glasses, and then you fly instrument procedures by just looking at your gauges. When I do that for like 3 hours a day, I really don't want to come home and stick on a VR headset and fly, even though it does allow me to practice some things. I have been doing rehearsals of different instrument procedures and really learning the Garmin setups and everything here, just because it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper to learn how the Garmin works with a goodness, that decision height thing is annoying. Can we turn that down? Yeah, so it's a lot easier to learn like how this Garmin over here works. Maybe use my laser pointer. It's a little bit easier for you guys to see. It's a lot easier to learn how this Garmin here works. In here, all the buttons work the same. All the programming works the same. It's, for all intents and purposes, the same for what I need to know how to do. If I happen to go into a menu that I do not understand, it's easy because I can just click clear and get me out of it, or click menu or flight plan and get me back to a place where I know I need to be to complete my flight. So it's nice to hop into the actual sim there. And that's kind of why I put the learning how to fly again on the thumbnail. Which, by the way, if anybody here watching is curious about flying, I will gladly explain stuff to you. You have thumbs. You are able to comment on something. You're able to ask questions if you'd like. Which, speaking of that, I need to message somebody. Ooh, I saw a weird car floating through the middle of it, so there might not be a... See the cars there? Nope, we're good. So yeah, technically I am learning how to fly again. But... Whoa, what's this? I also already do know how to fly, and I'd like to think that I'm pretty decent at it. Ooh, there's some pterodactyls popped up around here. That's fun. I'm pretty sure Sikorsky does not want you doing this with helicopters. But what are they going to tell me to do? Not do do it with their helicopters. Put me in one in real life, I'm not going to fly like this. But until then, I'll keep pushing the limits of what simulators and $40 models will allow me to do. Those are some pretty gnarly looking boulders up here. Hold up a second. It looks like there is some like rock slide management. Oh, that's a see-through hill. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wow. Okay, cool. It's like a Monaco castle. I'm sure there's an official name for this thing here. There's gotta be, right? There's parking spots so people can obviously drive up here. But yeah, so anybody who is interested in flying, I can and will gladly teach you things. That's more than okay with me. Also, I should send a message, which we are over Monaco now. This is Monaco area. I'll just send Mo a message. I am on stream right now if you want to hop on, but I know it's late on a Sunday. Yeah, that place looks cool. That'd be neat to check out. So yeah, Monaco, the tax haven of the rich, and I do not blame them. I despise taxes. I'm just not rich enough to afford to live in Monaco. Where the hell are you going down there? Let's see. We'll come in after that. Which obviously there's probably a lot of helipads on all the yachts and everything here as well. But there was a pretty sizable like hospital pad over here that I lost track of, but I'm sure we'll see it here in just a second. Oh yeah, there's that circle right here in front of us. I had no idea the hill area here around Monaco was as intense as it was. And I knew there were mountains here in South France, obviously. It's popular online, and you see pictures and stuff, and you'll see pictures of people getting into Monaco. But you never really understand that it's that up there. Yeah, he was in here for a minute. But he had to drive home from work, so no blame on him. Right now we're in Monaco. I was kind of saying earlier to him that, which he's aware because he's obviously a monetized YouTuber, but the rules on YouTube say like, cool, to be monetized you need X amount of views, X amount of watch time, X amount of whatever, and I looked, and my watch time for the past 365 days was getting near that lower level of what's allowed for monetization. And while I don't know they can take it away from me, I also kind of would like to keep it if they would take away. See, Mo might be hopping in here. I don't know if he'll be flying. He went and bought a simulator stuff because I was trying to convince him to get his simulator set up. Probably the last time we streamed. I haven't streamed in a while. Still have to gear up so we're not going to set down. There's no Blizzard Tower here. I'm sure they love that. But yeah, I kind of felt like I needed to get on here and do a little bit of streaming, a little bit of keeping the channel active. I may do some... Mo, what up? You ever get your setup? Your setup. Are you still working on gathering parts and trying to get it all programmed for everything? Let's see, you said something there. You just landed on... I'm just going to send a quick message that says GG. Hold up a second. No, you just landed on your sim. Oh, sick. Okay, cool. Yeah, whenever somebody types in something, it's hiding behind whatever until another message sends it up there. I think the hype option's only whenever you view something in like the first 2 days or something like that. Then it gives you the option to hype it, and that's only for videos and not for streams. But yeah, Mo, how is it? Do you feel like you're kind of picking up some motions and everything like that? I don't have my webcam up. I've taken my camera down the other day and I haven't stuck it back up for any reason. But I am curious, Mo, if you're able to, like, what's your procedure has been? Because you already had some stick wiggling concepts and you already understood how helicopters work just because of what you do and who you hang around. So I'm curious if it's applied any, or if you've been like spawning in the air and then slowly working your way slower to figure out your hovering, or what. Hey, there's a tunnel everybody drives through and F1 goes through. Sick. Let's see. Look, I don't want my landing gear down. Shut your mouth. There you go. Quiet. There you go. See? That easy. You don't have to bitch anymore, Mr. Game. Also, Mo, you can add me on this and text me or whatever. We'll join a Discord call or something like that. Whenever, because my schedule's open right now. Whatever I'm filming on doesn't start until days, or not days, a couple of weeks from now. So my schedule's pretty open, so if you're ever on and you want to fly or whatever. Let's see. Got it running. Using the Octolith, it's not bad. Still working on the hardware, software. It's really good in comparison to an actual helicopter. It's honestly harder. Yeah, that's one thing that I've noticed. Especially like on the R22. Like, I don't have experience in the A-Star. But in the R22, like, you have to, like, you fly like this. I mean, your sticks are wild because it's a non-hydraulic helicopter. I will say that this feels way more akin to the R44, being that it's hydraulic and easy, which I assume is probably similar to the A-Star, the way it feels. Actually, I want to pop out of here. I want to go somewhere else. But honestly, I don't mind having some sort of like harder thing to fly. And like what I've told everybody and what I've told all the they're about to do Monterey Car Week out here, so I'm kind of want to fly around here a little bit. We'll do it in the A-Star. Helicopter will do the factory installed A-Star. So like what I've told the instructors and everything that I've worked with, it's, I know that the helicopter in the simulator is not going to be a direct comparison to the real thing. I know that maybe the one in the game may have more power, but if you use a different model, like you do the A-Star here and then another factory installed one that's decent, the 407 sucks. It's so bad. It had a good one, but they got rid of it. But like these Cowan Sim 206 is pretty solid. That A-Star is pretty good. The 22 is pretty good. The best one that you can download is probably the Taux Hanger OH6 or 500 MD. BL105 is really good too. But it's like if you fly a mix of all these different ones, this one may have a really, really weird power application. This one may trim a little bit different than other stuff. This one here may auto-rotate better. This one here, like, so everything sucks. At least one way. But if you fly a little bit of everything, then you can get all the good parts of everything and all the sucky parts of everything. Kind of pick and choose what you want to agree with. You have to have some knowledge of what what it's supposed to be like. But you can say like, okay, cool, like I understand that really none of the models here, except for the Taugs Hanger 500C and their Dolphin, and I guess their Llama too, their 315, but nobody models settling with power, which is huge. That's the one thing in this game, or the two things that got me the most when I went to get my private license. First one was trim. So flying in trim, as you know, is left pedal, right pedal, put it in a way that keeps you pointing in the correct direction and keeps the helicopter as streamlined as possible while you're flying. Which makes sense. You don't get a good feel for trim in the sim. So when I went to go fly in real life, trim was basically non-existent for me. It wasn't something that I like started paying attention to until my instructor was like, hey dude, trim. Like it was a daily thing. Trim. So now it's like, okay, cool, I have to watch the ball here if I'm in instrument stuff, or if I'm flying, I have to watch the string up front. So no big deal, not that huge of a thing to fix. But, and the second thing, which trim is not detrimental. It's annoying to your passenger if you're flying with the doors off because they get blasted or you get blasted, but you kind of unknowingly make yourself safe just because you don't want to be getting blasted by the air. But I think settling with power is a lot more dangerous. And that's because even me in this thing, understanding it, I call this the zero repercussion machine, because guess what? We can fly this thing as aggressively as we want to, and it does not matter, because if we stuff it in the ground, guess what? It respawns us, and we're back to going. It's not that big of a deal. So with the repercussion machine here, we're almost spun up. So I'll show it here in a second. Got that. Generator, all that stuff's on. Those lights will go off when we take off. It's just a spawning glitch. So the generator and battery doesn't matter. And we'll take off over here and we'll go and get out. And yes, I did mean to do that. Like I said, this is the zero repercussion machine, and I like to throw shit around sometimes. So, in flying, for anybody watching that's unfamiliar, or you've never gotten the talk to or whatever, settling power is the helicopter descending through its own vortices as it's landing. The general rule is if you're going below 30 knots, do not go or do not have a quicker descent than 300 feet per minute. So 330, and then also you have to have some sort of power applied. If your collective's all the way down, you're not creating vortices, so you cannot get into them. Although you may be falling quickly, you won't be in them technically. So in real life, I'll show you what a real approach would look like if we were coming into a helipad or something. We'll pick a spot real quick. Let's see. We'll do it right in front of the four PAPI lights here at the runway. So coming in for an approach to the PAPI lights, obviously much lower at this point coming in. We're a helicopter, we don't need to be doing this. And we're doing 60 knots right now. Descending, we're at like 1,000 feet per minute. We're slowing the descent, and by here, especially in the Little Robinsons and stuff, I am getting myself down to a crawling pace here. So this is pretty standard approach, and that's a 300 foot per minute descent here, and this is how slow it looks. It feels painfully slow. It does give you more time to be precise and feel cooler in some little way, shape, or form. But I mean, it's slow, and you start applying power well before you get down. When I say apply power, I just mean you're pulling up the collective a little bit to add pitch to the helicopter. And that would be a pretty standard approach. But if we were to do this again from a way that's non-standard. And I'll show you why this can really mask. We're going to do a hot approach, and I'm going to get slow, but I'm going to keep a very, very fast descent speed, which is no bueno and would end up stuffing us in real life. It's like here in the game, I can do this and have zero repercussions, and not even just from crashing, but because this model does not have vortex ring state modeled. And then I pull collective, and you see I was able to stop immediately there, and it snatches me back up. You should not be able to do that. That is aerodynamically impossible for all intents and purposes. It's like another one I could do to induce that. Let's get my airspeed low here. My descent rate is climbing. You can see we're descending at 1,500, 2,000 feet per minute now. I'm just going to rip my collective up. I didn't push forward. I didn't get airspeed. We kept our airspeed under 20, but I arrested our descent. That should not happen. You will be falling straight down, and you have to do a corrective maneuver to get yourself out of that. This game shields that. And that's one thing that I have noticed a lot. Other than the trims, which I really, it's on my approaches and stuff now, it's a very definitive mental note of me telling myself, cool, slow down, take your time, you're not in a hurry, you're literally in a helicopter, you're faster than anybody else trying to get from point A to point B. Like, you do not need to come in and be on the ground as soon as possible. And of course there's ways around it, like you can come in on approach a little bit faster and have a quicker descent, and you can do like an auto rotation-ish sort of flare and pull yourself up, and that helps slow your descent without having to use a whole bunch of collective. That also slows you down. There's ways to do it in real life that are a safe way, but I mean, even that right there, that descent speed that we were doing right there at the final bit, it would be aggressive in real life, which is... The sim hides that very, very, very well, and almost in a dangerous way if you want to use this as a learning tool. And it's kind of hard to say it like that, because it does really, really good for other things. Like Mo was saying, like you get a... See, am I running... Yeah, this is 2024, correct. I don't know if X-Plane does it. I know 2020 didn't do it. It's literally just, I think the Talx Hanger Helicopters models vortex ring state. I know the HPG, like their 145 and 160, you'll get a vortex ring state warning alarm, an oral alarm going off if you do happen to put yourself in that situation. But I don't think that they have it actually aerodynamically modeled. It's just like, it senses your descent rate, it senses your airspeed, and it knows that you would be in vortex, but I don't think it's actually a modeled aerodynamic factor. And also there's vortex ring state and there's settling with power. They're relatively interchangeable terms, but people will also bitch because one thing isn't the other. Settling with power, even though it is not vortex ring state, you can still kind of say that's what it is. People will understand what it is, and to an extent it uses the same corrective procedures that you need to do. Until you're like right next to the ground, and then settling with power is settling with power, and no matter what you do vortex ring state wise, it's not going to fix it. But if you're well away from the ground, the same corrective procedures will take over. And there are variations of settling with power where you have rotor droop if you're trying to over torque, but technically that's a different issue, but people will call it settling with power, even though settling with power is more referring to the aerodynamic shit that's going on. Pain in the ass, but it is semantics to an extent. And for licensing, your DPE, your designated pilot examiner, will expect you to know what the differences are, and at least on a surface level, so you're not coming in for a landing too heavy and being like, oh man, I was in vortex ring state. No, you settled with power. Like, oh man, I was trying to hover out a ground effect and it was really, really hot outside. I was really, really heavy. Okay, cool. That's vortex ring state. Like I said, little variations. The corrective procedure, if you have the room, is the same thing of lowering the collective a little bit to get rid of the pitch in your blades, nosing forward to give yourself forward airspeed. Then as soon as your trim strings come back into play, you're moving forward, you have control authority with your main rotor again, and then you can apply takeoff max power, or whatever you'd want to call it, and push forward and build your airspeed back up. If you're at a lower altitude, you can do a Vachard technique, which is power pedal and opposite stick. So in my Robinsons, that would be pushing the left pedal and pushing right on my cyclic to get out. In the A-Star here, it's right pedal, left cyclic. And the reason you would do that is because if you look at the exterior of the helicopter, when I click right pedal here, it pushes the helicopter that way because I'm trying to turn the helicopter one way or the other. But that's also thrusting the entire body of the helicopter in that left direction, which in a way is in fact getting me out of that downward descent vortex. So right pedal and left with the cyclic to push me off to the side can get me out of a down falling vortex quicker than pushing forward and lowering the collective. It's better for low altitude stuff if you have the altitude. If you're up here at 500, 600 feet or something and you happen to get into a vortex ring state, so a relative thing for the A-Star doing camera ship stuff would be if for some reason it was decided that you need 2 people up front, 4 people in back with all the equipment, you have a full tank of fuel and the camera and stuff on the outside, and you have dead wind or a tailwind in the direction that you need to face, you may find yourself in a place where you don't have enough power. The A-Star is a pretty strong helicopter, so that's probably not what the thing's going to be, but in that case you have plenty of height. You push forward, you lower your collective. Once you get that forward airspeed, then you can add power and go back to forward flight, and then you say, hey, there's too many fucking people in here. 2 of y'all got to get out. Or we got to circle around for 20, 30 minutes and burn a little bit of fuel, so then you do have enough remnant power to manage that sort of thing of, you know, existing in an out-of-ground effect hover. I think we might go hop in the 500C, just because it's actually modeled in there, and it's the relative thing to talk about when talking about the pitfalls and the plus sides of having a simulator thing. So yeah, let's crash real quick. Sick. Okay. Let's get into 500C. I still want to be here, but I want to spawn on like somebody's yard or something. Yeah, golf course. Sounds fun. It says departure, on the ground, shut down. Because cold starts are fun. We're going to do 500C cargo. And daytime, because I want to see what we're doing. Yeah, I'm psyched that you're using it and that you're finding benefit to it. And I'm curious to see how that will help. That crash looked familiar from you getting used to doing everything. Are you starting on the ground and going through full startup or running on the ground, or are you spawning in the air? Because I don't remember if I ever gave you my rundown of how I figured out the best way to kind of start. I tell people to start in the air flying and then work on slowing yourself down. That's my best suggestion, because then you're not trying to worry about hovering immediately. Like, okay, cool, you can move forward. You can have a little bit of leeway. Both, yeah. Of course, startup procedures are fun too, you know. Position anti-net. That's on. Start pump, sick. I think I gotta click and hold this one. Yep. And one's moving. Okay, at 40, I should be able to take my finger off. Nope, I can? I gotta wait till green light on this one. Sick, love that. Which it's annoying because, like, you're supposed to do throttle manipulations and stuff with it too, but the throttle manipulations didn't work. Wait a second, why are you hot starting me now? Restart. I'm not going to make myself have to do an emergency procedure unless I don't want to. But yeah, it's also weird on some of these models, depending on who makes these things. The starter button will hold itself down. Some of them, they won't hold themselves down. I kind of like the ones that hold themselves down, even though it's technically doing something like easier than what it should be. But just because I'm on a simulator and I don't have all the buttons and switches in real life, and it's nice to have an extra hand to grab my controller, because right now I'm using my right hand to press the starter button. And if I need to do any other switches... See, there we go. Now it's not even giving me fuel until I turn my throttle that little bit. So this time it waited for me, which is weird. Okay, so now we're going to wait for the red line, so it's a solid start then. Now I can let off of that and get the generator on. It's going to beep at us now. I'm going to slowly bring her up. I'm rolling the throttle with my left hand here on the collective. And if I click the governor on right now, it'll just shoot it up there really quick. But I'm going to roll it up slowly like this was for real. A little bit of role playing there for everybody. There we go. Now I'm going to click the governor and roll the throttle all the way up. Good to go. Sick. Okay, so what we're doing with this one, this is the Paseo Ranger H500C, which is the MD500 OH6, whatever you want to call it. Let's move all our little lollipops around. And I'm going to show you settling with power. Or really vortex range state, but the same thing. I hate the semantic stuff on that. This one has a lot of translating tendencies, so I wasn't even happy with that pickup. We're going to do that here. So you don't want to skid it anywhere as you're taking off. So I'm going to put more left side in here as you're taking off. Keep this in the same place. So do a painfully slow pickup, 2-stage, feel it out. Well, there we go. Now we're off the ground. And we're hanging left skid low, which is correct for this helicopter. Paseo does a really good job on this stuff. So yeah, let's put some altitude at it. We're going to crash this one. That's just how it's going to work. And also for anybody watching that's trying to learn how to fly a helicopter, I did kind of put a title on this that made it seem like I'm going to teach everybody how to be a pilot. I will. I suggest spotting in the air so you don't have to go through the startup procedure. Picking a spot where you want to land, aiming for it, coming down to it, of course adding collective as you get to it, and work on slowing yourself down more and more. And I'm going to put my pedal centered right here. And you can see that we're kind of turning right a little bit. And the slower I get, the more we're going to turn right. And right now my feet still aren't touching the pedals. So this is needing a little bit of the left pedal crank. So I'm going to put a little bit of left pedal in there. And that has us pointing in the right direction. But as I slow down more, we start turning to the right more. So I need more and more pedal. So really your best friend to learn how to hover stably is starting in the air and slowing yourself down, because at the end of the day it's pretty easy to move cyclic forward, backward, left, right. It's pretty easy just to slowly apply collective as you're landing to pushing your descent rate. But getting the pedal in there with everything else is kind of what messes a lot of people up. Also, a lot of times you get into a pilot-induced oscillation where you're doing this, and you're like, oh man, I'm going this way. Oh man, I'm going this way. Oh man, I'm going this way. Don't feed into that. It's a PIO, pilot-induced and not oscillation. You don't want to get into that. The best way to get yourself out of a swinging situation would be getting over here, and I'm coming over here like, oh man, I'm doing this. I'm going to put my corrective action. I'm just going to hold that left stick. And then I'll slowly start moving in that direction. Of course, I'll need pedal and stuff to give myself whatever, but when you just feed yourself one direction, you kind of keep that one-sided pressure on it. You'll calm it down. Of course, you will have to recenter yourself to make your hover back still and stable again, but you don't want to do a PIO situation, because that can be a lot more dangerous than just like hovering around aimlessly in the field. As long as you have the altitude above the ground, you're good. So yeah, settling with power, or working spring state, I'm going to fatten this up some. I'm going to give us a full tank of fuel real quick. See if I can pop it here. 5 performance, massive balance. Make myself right 200 pounds. 200 pounds. 200 pounds. Okay, so now we're at 2,457 pounds out of 2,500 pounds of gross weight. So we're heavy. We're not max gross, but we're heavy. So we're going to come back down to the same field, whatever. Actually, we're going to do the golf course next to it over here because it gives me some points to aim for. We're going to go for one of these little sand traps over here. And I'm going to do a normal speed approach like we did in the A-Star before we spawned in on this one. So let's go for that middle sand trap that's kind of over there. Now it's all the way over here, so we all have to bother with it. And here we can see I'm very slow with my forward airspeed. I want to keep it above 30 for right now, just because I'm still descending, and I still do need to come down and out. My descent rate's near 1,000 feet per minute right now, which is way faster than I need to if we're going to be at slower than 30. So I'm going to start adding power, which adding pitch in my collective. I've slowed my descent rate down. And now we can slowly bring ourselves into it. And I did realize I didn't point out what my gauges were beforehand, because there are some people who aren't going to know what they're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and point those out for you right now to show you the important ones of what I'm looking at. So we have our airspeed here. Pretty obvious, top left, good. This is our altitude, but it doesn't tell us how fast we're descending. That's why we have the VSI here on the vertical speed indicator. As we come down here, that's 1,000 feet per minute down, 1,000 feet per minute up, 500, of course 300, about right there. This right here is our rotor RPM. Doesn't really matter unless we're really doing something stupid. Torque. Kind of relevant, because if we over torque, it's an expensive issue. We don't want to over torque an engine, especially if it was real life. In the simulator here, whatever. But yeah, big thing we're looking at speed, so 30-ish knots, and 300 feet per minute, decent there. And I'll do it again real quick, just because gas is cheap here in the simulator, so it's not costing much to do these runs. And we'll do another approach to the same spot there. And you see the torque right there moving as I add collective, torque goes up. As I lower collective, torque goes down. The cool thing is, with the Italics hanger models, they do model damage. So if you do over torque for too long, you will get chip lights, you will lose an engine, and you will have to auto rotate. We may do that in a bit after I do some teaching. Because once again, the engines are free in the game. So we've got 60 knot airspeed right now with 550 minute descent. And this will be another normal descent to that second sand trap we have up here. Speed slowing down, I have it set in my descent profile, so I'm trying to keep that spot in the same place on my windscreen. And now that we're in the final area, I'm adding collective and slowing us down to less than 300 feet per minute there. You can see it wanted to get more there for a second, but I had to keep adding collective power to get us in. And then down to it. And that's really how slow you need to land. Can you hot dog it? Yeah. I'll do a hot dog landing, but not as a destructive hot dogging landing. I'll do a hot dog, but actually planting it correctly. And that's more of a know what your descent rate is and plan for your descent to finish right there at that spot, or descend quicker earlier, which is the safer option, so you're closer to the ground, then trade your forward airspeed in for a quick stop, which gives you more lift to keep you from settling into it. But also this would be a non-standard approach if you would like to consider anything non-standard. This would, hopefully, we don't bark it here, but this will be a non-standard successful approach. So coming in, you can see we're really, really fast. Coming down, really, really fast. And here I'm already adding collective in, and then down to it. And you can still see my final descent is still more on a controlled sort of speed. But I can come in a lot hotter because I'm playing with the energy of the helicopter and what I'm putting. So I had a lot of forward airspeed there that I could turn into a pretty effective air brake, slow down, and not hot dog it. But now we're going to try to stuff it. So first I'm going to get up here to 500 feet or so above ground level. We're at what? 300 there. So yeah, we'll get up to like 800 feet AGL. And I'm going to set us up just in a standard vortex ring state scenario. So what we're looking at, we have our airspeed basically at 0. I do have some torque applied or some collective applied because obviously we are hovering. And we're going to get a stable 0 vertical airspeed. I'm going to slowly start letting us down. As I get below 300 or so, you're going to see that the VSI is just going to drop out of me. And there you go. See, I haven't touched my collective any, but see how he really, really dropped out right there? So I push forward, I lower the collective, I get my airspeed back, and that allows us to go forward. Like I said, this model has it, the tower saying I have no model, like, they are quick. In real life, the onset is more, it's more progressive, it's slower. You notice it feels very unnatural to put yourself into that scenario, but also entering a vortex ring state scenario from a very high out of ground effect hover and just like slowly lowering collective until it dumps you into an aerodynamic trap. It feels wrong. So we've even started training it differently at the school that I go to, where they do it more as like we're setting up for an approach, but from an approach here, and then we just kind of put ourselves in a situation where it's really not playing. So I'm going to do it again right here. We'll do the shard. So I'll do left pedal heavy and then right stick. There it is. Now we're dropping past the left pedal, right stick, and it puts us out of that that downwash. And you can see that we lost a lot less altitude once I established the recovery technique. Because the normal recovery technique, if we were to get into vortex ring state here, as we do, to push forward and to do all this, it puts us dangerously close to down here because we have to get forward, we have to get airspeed back, and then apply the power as soon as we're out of our aero hole that we dug ourselves into. So the Bouchard's really a low altitude thing, while the standard recovery is a high altitude, you have time to do it. But the best thing is to know what the onset feels like, know what not to do, and take your fucking time. That is the big, take your time when you're doing your approaches. And I kind of do like the Tower Ranger one here just because it will throw you in there like quickly. So we'll do a steeper standard approach coming into the second thing like we have been doing. But I'm going to wait a few more seconds to get in here so it's now like a steeper approach. And this will be one of the things like I'm dedicating myself to it here. So I don't want to miss this. I still don't want to... I'm going too fast, obviously. Here, I mean, I'm applying more and more collective, but it's still catching it. I think I have enough forward airspeed right there to where it wasn't really going to affect me, but we'll keep pushing. It's not modeled perfectly. It's a simulator, which is why I say you have to go fly the weekend. You just have to know what the shortfalls of your simulator and the models are. My dog making noise, she's good. Or should I just hot dog and see if it'll throw me in there? I want it to stuff me on one of these. So I was doing a super cool guy landing like I was trying to do in the A-Star earlier where it was just letting me do it. Like here, I'm not getting out of this. Barely survived on that one. And that's because I was able to recover just enough forward airspeed to get us out of it. Now I really hate this a little bit because I'm trying to be a bad pilot, but also the CFIs drill into you like, well, you gotta do this, so it's hard to suck sometimes. Mo, adios. I'll send you the my thing. I'm pretty sure on the top right of the screen there is a friends list option, and you should be able to search that there. Cool. Just shoot you a text for that, and you kind of put it here on the screen too. But yeah, you're still watching up here, top right of your pause menu. You can go up here. I think you can add friend. I sent you my name, which is this Paseo Ranger. Add me. Should work. Sometimes you just can't do the hot dog stuff with the helicopters that you want to just because aerodynamics exist. Like that right there, I drooped the rotor there. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I didn't over torque it, but I asked too much from it and I got low rotor RPM there, which is no bueno. Means we're too heavy coming in too hot and asking too much from the helicopter that's not enough. With that said, let's see if we can kill the engine real quick. So I'm just going to be trying to over torque it and do things now. So hard to overtalk the thing nowadays. We did get a reignition, so that's cool. It was sawn. Is that past tense seen? There we go. Main rotor transmission ships. That's what I want to see. That's what I'm looking for here now. Looking for gauges to start showing me things are going wrong. It will die on me now. You do not fly with a chip slide on. I should be doing an emergency landing right now. With the intention of entering auto rotation if something happens. It's like I would be going to land in that golf course right now, like prepared and ready to enter an auto, given something wrong happened with it. There we go. Nope. Or just a reignition. Engine oil temperature, sick. Love it. This is just me flying blind. I'm not looking at my gauges. Something wrong is going to happen. Where does smoke right here? Nope. Look at my helmet sticking out. What a dumb. Transmission oil pressure. We're gonna go land in that same area down there too when it fails. Come on, fall apart on me. The damn Nissan Altima just keeps going. I want to land on that same thing down there, so I'm just kind of staying in this area until the engine fails. Oop, there we go, engine out. Got that back. Lower collector a little bit more. Get some forward airspeed going. Pull up collective some. Don't want to overspeed the rotor system, like I haven't already done enough damage. And as we can see here, our engine needle is dead, but I'm still keeping the rotor RPM in operated range because we are in auto rotation right now. I'm trying to keep around 60 knots forward airspeed. Around here, I'm going to start a flare, start slowing my descent down, throw some rotor RPM on it, push forward, collective up, and look, there's our sand trap. Bit on the skiddy ride, would have been a rough landing, but we're down, and I was aiming for a very specific point, so it shows you can do it to an extent. Autos are fun. Speaking of autos, we're going to hop into Huey. It's also good at autos. It's also got a very picky startup procedure. Roll the throttle down, turn the governor off, because if you have those up, it will take off and shoot up and over-torque the engine, and it's not fun. Got a freaking UN spec white Huey here. Cool, but I don't think there's any pre-flights on the outside of this one. Nope. Shift C puts us inside. Good sounds coming from this. If Helicopter King gets back in here, Mr. Micel, he will be excited to see a Huey. He loves these things. To start, we got to get our battery on. Bus there on essential, that's fine. Horn, shut up. Fuel on, governors on there, that's good, that's good. Nav, not worried about anything there. All that's good, checking on that. Transmission inverter, hydraulic, that's good there. That's standard. Sure, we can put a... Nope, I don't want dome light. No. Dang it. There we go. Want you to flash. That's what we needed. Okay, sick. So all that's good there. Click and hold my starter. Oh, I guess I just click this one once and it does it itself. Okay. Annoying. Hueys are cool. Don't get me wrong. Also kind of old technology. Which is, I don't want to say a gripe. But it's kind of my main gripe if I were to have one. Okay, so that's good. We can turn that onto there. Nope. Also really annoying because this is extremely sensitive for ground controlling. Kind of pesky, but whatever. So there's an inverter there. And now we see our torque pressure there. On this gauge, we keep this sucker under 40 as we're turning up our RPM, which are these two needles here. Also, there is like a check engine light reset button somewhere. I forget where it is. We'll find it here in a second. Because that will be annoying even though we're good. There we go. The reset gets rid of that. Oop, that'll lose my collective there. My cyclic. Okay, so now I'm slowly turning the throttle. You can see it down there moving just a wee bit on my collective. But I've got to keep the torque limit low or else it will over-torque the engine. Oh yeah, Huey sounds are great. But they're subject to mass bumping, which is the same issue that two-bladed Robinsons and Bell 206s and stuff have. Which kind of sucks because, like, being a military helicopter, you kind of want it to be more cool guy rated, if you will. Which me and Helicopter King were having a conversation about that the other day, about which he posted the video, which is more iconic. Which there's other people in here. Other people, feel free to comment. There's 6 people watching. What's more iconic, the Huey or the Chinook? Of course, most people know what a Chinook is, but not a lot of people can call out Chinook sounds just by the sound of a Chinook. But most people, even if they've only seen a Huey once in a movie, and they know what a Huey is supposed to be, and they've seen any sort of like Vietnam things, and they hear a Huey blade slap, they're going to go, oh, sick, that's a Huey. Go. I've got our blade speed up there now. Almost fully in the green. I'm going to wiggle my cyclic some, let it get in there. And there we go. I click the governor over, so now it's running governor power on everything. But yeah, listen to that. Matt, why are you in the Huey? You were just flying other stuff. Huey does really, really good auto rotations. I don't want to kill the engine because I want to fly a little bit more too, but we'll just do some like practiced autos, you know, where I just kind of like roll off the throttle like you do usually. Yeah, I feel like Hueys are the EC-35. Okay, cool. So that's helicopter. We're going to go over here and investigate this fella. It's obviously a replay of a flight that was out here earlier today because I have it on live replay traffic. We're going to come out here and see if it actually shows an EC-135. Huey sounds. Good blade coning effects too. Yeah, it's also funny. He's asked me before if I wanted to like meet up to do one of the Huey rides at the Army Aviation Heritage Foundation there at the airport I fly out of, and like honestly, Hueys are sick. I just don't have any sort of desire to go ride in a helicopter unless I'm sitting in a seat and they're going to let me wiggle the sticks to it. Like, sorry. Like, don't get me wrong, it'd be sick to ride in a Black Hawk. Get to do Black Hawk stuff. But guess what I want to do more than sit in a Black Hawk? I want to fly the Black Hawk. And I'm a rated pilot, so legally I could, because it's a 2-pilot helicopter. You gotta have a pilot and you have to have a co-pilot who's a rated pilot. They don't have to be rated for the Black Hawk, they just have to be a rated pilot. So another 300 feet to go up to meet them. Pretty sure EC-35 would be, not that. It might, well, it's twin engine, turbine engine, and sometimes the sim does not like showing different things. CMD-13. CMD-13 helicopter. Medical CalStar EC-135, yeah. So I'm right, the game's just wrong giving it an airplane body. Okay, auto rotation, where's my freaking airport? First, where are they going? There must be a hospital down here, something for them to be this low. So if I do G... Yep, there's a helipad right there. I assume that's at a hospital. Griffin, no, that's a recreational center. Don't know where they're going. Nope, they are going to the airport. Okay, so we're going to get up here. We're 1,000 feet above the runway right now. It's not terrible. Doesn't feel like, it feels like 800. But we'll do an auto rotation behind this fella. Oh, do we not have an airspeed gauge here? Engine, torque pressure, percent RPM, vertical speed. Weird, there's no... Very strange. What's that? Okay, cool. There we go. That gives us some airspeed. Kind of like airspeed when you're doing things. Because you want to be around 60 knots or so. Okay, let's throw an auto. These things have ridiculous amounts of inertia in the rotor system. And we'll enter it traditionally and not as an emergency as we did earlier. So the correct steps we're going to be doing is down on the collective, right pedal, aft on the cyclic, just a wee bit. I'm going to roll off the throttle, make sure it's on the bottom. I'll make sure it's on the bottom, then roll off the throttle. And then kind of bump it up a little bit. So we're going way too fast there. Still feel like our altitude's off. But anyways, down, right, aft, bottom, close, bump. You can see we're losing our engine RPM there on our big main gauge. But our rotor RPM is still staying as a rotor RPM. 65 knots, I'm happy with that. I can even lower the collective a little bit. We'll lose a little bit of forward airspeed, but it gives us a bit of rotor RPM. Not that big of a deal. And like you can see, we're floating right now. We are doing nothing. There's a Robinson 44 parked over there. And if we're not doing a full down, you start the flare around here. You roll the throttle back up. And then you push forward. Your throttle should be matched. I want to go over and see what this blue Robinson's parked. I think it was a 44. I don't think it was a 66 model. I think they had some ground models that they don't have as air models. Oh no, it's a turbine. It's got the bigger exhaust up top. Ass Robin. Okay, ways that you can tell it's a 66 other than it's saying R66 on the back there. It's technically a little bit longer than the 44, but that's hard to tell if you're not super familiar with R44s. Hard for me to tell because I don't spend much time looking at both, but you have an exhaust right there. And the vents are right there on the 66. If it was a 44, the vents would be right here on the upper side of the fuselage, and you'd have a little exhaust pipe down there on the bottom because it's a piston engine. Okay, anyways, back up we go. Whoa, why'd you turn? Why'd you stop? I was doing cool guy shit on you. Do I have to go to somebody a while, not on the airport? Game's freezing. We might crash. Yep. Sorry guys, my game was freezing a little bit. I don't know why it's not starting us already running. Weird. In flight. Let's see. Monterey kind of flat, not gonna lie. Let's use these little rink-dink airports here. Says departure. What I have not flown in a while. Actually, in memory, 3 days ago, there was an S-64 Sky Crane that crashed in Utah, somewhere around this area. I want to say they even took off from Richmond. Killed pilot and co-pilot on board. So that sucks to see. Actually, I think we have a very similar livery we can throw on it. Yeah, that'll be the closest one because it's the Ericsson. That one's too white. "12 people in here. What's going on, guys? Happy Monday morning." I say as we hop in a helicopter that happened to kill 2 pilots a couple of days ago. Very sad situation. Apparently they were very loved and they were doing a lot of good work in the area that they were in. Oh boy, the pre-flight on this is gonna suck, I believe. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy pre-flighting existing on this, but like, how am I gonna take that off? Like, it used to be I could have like an infinite laser pointer and take off, so I'm going to get out of VR real quick. And I know on the 225 they have a tail rotor lock. Nope, I don't see that here. Okay. Let's see if this throws off my view any. Nope, I think we're good. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's also a K-Max that went down like 2-3 weeks ago or something. Killed the single pilot. Of course, there's only a single pilot in those. Yeah, it sucks. Firefighting's a dangerous job. You get a lot of wild thermals. You're working at absolute max gross weight whenever you do have water in the tank. We would blow that 44 or that 66 away right there. Crazy thermals. It's hot. A lot of times you're in mountains like this where you're relatively high altitude as well. Low visibility, and a lot of times working in hills and valleys, and it's just not a good situation, and it sucks. Okay, I have not flown this thing in a while. Let's see. Overhead master panel. Don't worry about that. Avionics master standby. Position lights doesn't matter. Fuel control panel, EC wiper. I feel like there used to be a battery switch right there. Maybe I'm mistaken. Or is it, yeah, it's down here. Let's see, I do want Avionics Master on. Let's see, fuel. Nope. You're gonna stay there. And that'll get our APU starting, so we'll start creating enough power to actually be able to turn over these giant engines, because this is a multi-thousand horsepower aircraft. And you need more than just a battery to turn it on. So we have a separate turbine engine just to power our starters for the turbine engines. Wait for that to be 100%. We're good on there. It's doing its thing. And now here I can do pump 1, pump 2 for auxiliary, so that's good. That should be doing its thing fine. Pump, 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 cross feeds. You're supposed to have it open for a point, and then it turns back off again. Doesn't really matter on the startup sequence for this as far as this model's concerned. Rectifiers, ignition switches can go on. And here,
failure. Engine 1, 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 failure.
don't tell me engine 1 failure.
Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure.
What am I
Engine
forgetting?
1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1,
Oh.
failure. Engine 1,
Fuel.
failure.
Needs fuel.
Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure. Engine 1, failure.
Cool.
Engine 1, failure.
There you go. There's your engine 1.
Failure. Engine 2, failure. Engine
She always
2,
sounds less
failure.
excited about the engine 2 failure.
Engine 2, failure. Engine 2, failure.
Pitot heat, go and turn that on and get rid of that.
Engine 2, failure. Engine 2, failure.
starter, rectifier, inverter. Can go on external power, not a thing. I should be able to stop the APU at this point. Roll both engines up to run. Anti-collision lights on, position lights on. Get them all on. We got plenty of power to play. Now we just gotta wait for it to kind of crank up and do its thing. Which it kind of does its own thing, and then eventually it'll just like take off and spin up really quick. It's weird. Both are going. Both of those are on run. Just waiting for it now. Fuel pressure's on. That's good. That's good. Battery, inverter, ignition switch. Yep. Rotor brakes off. Hoist not a thing. We're in fire. Setup. Heater's not a thing. See, there we go. Out of nowhere, it waits for something, does its thing. Waiting for our rotor RPM to get up here in the green. We're at 75, 77 now. We're waiting for the green up in there. And there we go. Torque down. We're at happy levels. We'd be blowing all this stuff around us right now. Goodness. And flying third person is hard. And it's one of those weird things. I would really, really love to fly a sky crane one day, but, and also don't get me wrong, I would love to fly fires one day. Having an extremely important, I don't even want to say heroic, but like a necessary job in the firefighting world. Going in and saving communities, saving houses, saving neighborhoods would be huge. I would love to do something like that. But also, I want a family. I want kids. And I want to go home to them. And I'm okay accepting the risk of medical pilot or normal long line. Or if I was working in a sky crane, you know, doing stuff like heavy lift operations for sky crane related activities. But man, doing it as a firefighter is a whole nother level of hats off to these guys. Hats off, hearts out, everything you would like to say, because taking one of these things into a very low visibility mountain area is not a fun thing. I wonder if I can do there's a mountain right there if y'all didn't remember. And to be flying in something that's this or worse, yeah. Yeah, they literally do fly into hell. Stop. There we go. I mean, even this here, this is... like, not great visibility for mountain flying. I've got it kind of put in little bitch mode, you know. Yeah, not exactly a primo thing to be doing. We're at 8,000 feet here. It's mean ground level. Yeah, I cannot imagine. Even, like, this is garbage visibility. And these are technically not IFR helicopters. Get back there down. I think they could be IFR rated, and they might be. Honestly, I don't know. I don't want to put words in my mouth that are not correct. It's not my place to talk, and it's definitely not my place to be a backseat pilot for something like this. It's just horrible to hear. Also, unrelated, I'm adding collective, less collective, more collective. You can see the blades changing their coning angle, which is kind of sick. Good for them. But I mean, yeah, you can imagine there being a fire up here somewhere, then having to go down into the valley to a water source or something. Honestly, I wish the fires were better in this game. You can do firefighting, but they just... It's Microsoft Flight Sim. There's so much that they don't do here. Does the smoke affect the mechanics of the helicopter? I assume if you do get into thick enough of it, it will... Hello, updraft. I assume that you will get some sort of loss of engine performance. But I'm not planning on flying in smoke, so I'm not going to give myself to that. And of course, ash and everything on that too. You get on the windshield, there's a handful of videos I've seen where pilots will see like a wild and firefighting crew kind of on an overlook. So let's say that they were over here at the top of this mountain. Let's say that this was an overlook over here to our left. They will fly over to them because they'll say, oh, sick, there's some dudes with a fire truck. And they'll come over to the peak where the firefighters are, and they'll hover here, and they'll either radio in or they'll do a hand signal or something like that, because they can barely see out of their windshield because of all the ash and all the soot that gets into them. And they'll hover here, and they'll let the firefighters and stuff squirt off the windshield of the helicopter so they can get back to work. I mean, it is a insane job to do. And like I said, when you're flying something like this, I mean, it's just a matter of a quick wind shift, or going around a corner to somewhere where you thought was going to be clear air and it's not. Because depending on... yeah, low oxygen would be my assumption. But like here, like, if you look at my attitude indicator, I'm aiming to the right, so I'm not even level there. It's like here, it's like, okay, cool, like this would be a turnaround while we still can see the ground over here. And they're flying into stuff with visibility not that bad. There's obviously operational limits to what they can do and what they are allowed to do. That will vary from company to company. I've got no idea what HTS's operational limits were. But I'm sure it was safe because, I mean, they've always had a good track record, just like many of the helicopter companies, if not most of them. Especially when you get to the point where you have a Forest Service license to do firefighting. You usually have a very, very good safety record. Highly rated pilots. You know, there's a lot of good that is there. And I know they were finally able to get somebody down to the wreckage where they said that both pilots did pass away from it. But I don't know if we're ever going to know what happened. I'm pretty sure these things are not black boxed. I think there are some helicopters that are, but I couldn't tell you whether the S-64 was or not. And that also may be something that the operator will do that differs from team to team. Maybe Helicopter Express has black box setups and HTS does or doesn't. I don't know. Not my place to say again. See, I'm just kind of treating this like a run. I'm going to pretend there's a thing down here for me to take water out of. And what did we learn? This would be vortex ring state right there. But our zero repercussion machine makes it where vortex ring state does not exist in a lot of these helicopters in the game. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they were on a Snuffleupagus one, so they had the big tube that would drop down and dip into one of the mobile pool setups that firefighters will set up and pump water into for helicopters to come grab out of. Definitely getting wind changes of different downtraps there. Yeah, I think they would have mechanical issues with low oxygen for the engine, as well as just ingestion of particle that will probably not affect the blade itself, but just so much other stuff that even though the oxygen may be present, it may be snuffed out by the other stuff that would reduce combustion capabilities. Visually, there could be things going on where they couldn't see. There could have been a failure of something, which usually it's a twin-engine helicopter, makes a bazillion horsepower. It's very strong, very capable. And in the situation where they would have lost an engine, I would assume standard practice would be to dump the load, to go ahead and take that 20,000-pound load that you've picked up, and you would get rid of that immediately. Just like that's kind of the go-to thing with a lot of external load operations with helicopters. If there's an issue with the helicopter, dump the load. Because you should have already set yourself up in a place to where you're not flying over people or anything unnecessary. So if you drop the load, like, oh man, you dropped the AC unit in a parking lot. Oh, you dropped it on the roof, but that's part of the risk of that. Like, you're not flying it over people to get to where you need to go. So I would assume out here they're not flying over, and if somebody wasn't there to get to them immediately, or it took them a while, it was like a day before they were able to get to them, I believe. I feel like they would have been able to dump the water really, really quick. But like I said, also with the fires, this is like it was like a 100,000 acre fire or something. And yeah, the filters do exist. I don't know if they would have had filters installed because they're not really in a sandy area. And maybe it's too risky because they may clog. So they just run it empty and say like, cool, we just deal with a slight premature wear. Don't know. Not my place to say. But if I can armchair quarterback as absolutely respectful as possible to these two pilots and to families and everything, I feel like it was something that was probably beyond their control, or something that onset so quick that you wouldn't have been able to really do much. Like, as you can see, like, I don't have a synthetic vision here. I've got my attitude indicator where I can see this going on here, but I don't really have a thing to tell me, oh man, there's something in the way. You can't have like decision height indicators and stuff like that, where it'll tell you like what your radial altimeter is here. Versus there, I'm like 700 feet above the ground. When I get over here, you'll see that like I'm at like 300, 400, whatever here. It's like, yeah, you could see that coming up at the ground was coming to you, but if you don't know where the ground's at, like I said, it could be one of the things where they were flying this when they say, okay, cool, we're going to go around this corner here, and we expect, like, we don't see clouds here or smoke here at the second. And then they get around the corner, but the smoke's blowing really, really strongly just off in the direction where they can't do anything, where you didn't see the smoke before. And then it could have put them in something as simple as like, cool, there's no idea that there's a mountain there just because it's so obviously obscured, and they would be incapable of turning around quick enough in the provided valley. You know, some of these valleys are skinny and maybe they're just not able to turn around quick enough, and it's a million things. A lot of things could have happened, and I'm not going to make any more guesses. I don't think it was any sort of recklessness whatsoever. It's just purely a bad situation regardless. Because like usually here for like my instrument flying and stuff, it's cool. You check your altitude gauge, make sure you're holding altitude, you make sure that your wings are level, your blades are level, you got good airspeed or whatever. So even if you're in the clouds like this and you can't see the ground, like there I'm descending, so I have to pull up a little bit to make sure I'm keeping a level altitude. Even there I'm still descending. But when you can't see there and you have no idea if there's a mountain or anything around you, you know, you can't really do much. And right now I'm still at like a 200 foot per minute descent. And I'm actually going to put us in a more aggressive descent here, hoping that we pop out of the clouds below. If not, then we'll meet a mountain. Foot per minute descent was aggressive, especially like you kind of want to pop out the top of the clouds quick. You don't want to pop out the bottom that fast. I said I'm still at a 1500 foot per minute descent there. I'm going to kill a lot of the airspeed here, and I can see ground below us, but there we go. I can make out valley in front of us there. Yeah, these things are not made to really fly IFR. They're made to pick up heavy loads and fly slowly. much of what fascinates you about helis is how complex they are. Yeah, mechanics and maneuvering, and like, I don't want to sound like some show-offy expert. I'm not. I'm a very low-hour pilot, all things considered. Where was the airport? It was somewhere. I guess it was up this way. I'm a very low-hour pilot. So, once you learn how to fly, it's not a hard thing to do. You push a stick forward, you move a stick backwards, the helicopter will go where you want it to go. There are some traps, like the aerodynamic traps that I kind of talked about when we were flying earlier in the A-Star and the 500C, where you get yourself into vortex ring state or settling with power. Those are the big things that people will get themselves into. Most other things, it's being stupid, flying too fast, too low and too slow if you have a failure, like an engine failure or something. You know, it's things that are relatively preventable, but you get built in and you get used to the sense of speed while you fly. Just like if you ever used to have like a PlayStation Portable or a Game Boy or whatever back in the day, and you would go fly or you'd go play like a racing game sitting in the back of the car on a family vacation. Cool, a lot of fun. But then you look up and it feels like you're going 4 miles an hour. So like this right here, like we're doing 80 knots, we're doing pretty quickly. But when I get to the airport up here to do the landing, which we're still, 3.5 miles away, which I'll even speed up like 100 knots here, so it makes the speed feel more whatever. Your sense and the induced normalcy of traveling at a decent speed and maneuvering at a decent speed, like here, I'm in no detriment really to be descending at 2,000 feet per minute when I'm doing 100 knots. Of course, it's not the best, obviously. You don't want to put yourself in a situation, but I'm not aerodynamically putting myself in a situation to where vortex ring state or settling with power is going to be an issue, because I'm well above 2 of the 3 things that have to go wrong. Like I'm going over translational lift, so more than 30 knots. And I didn't have any power applied because I was just straight descent. I wasn't even on the collective any. Yeah, my descent speed was more, but you have to have all 3 of those for settling with power or vortex ring state to get established. You can't just do 2 of them, you gotta have all 3. So you can do all the stuff that puts you into vortex ring state in different ways, you know, like I can have power applied and be descending fast here. Of course, I'll be faster than my 30 knots. Or I can be at 30 knots and I can have a fast descent speed, but I can be at 0 collective and I still won't be in vortex ring state. So you can always do 2 out of 3, so it builds a very rough sense of like kind of Iron Man. It's there's toxic personalities that you get in piloting, like resignation, where if something goes wrong, you're just like, oh hell, well I can't fix this, we're just gonna have to fly into the mountain and die. But one that a lot of people, and I feel like it's the one that I'll probably suffer from the most, is macho. And it's, you have to be aware of what your main toxic attitude would be. And now, even though it's something that I do my best not to do, I try to be very conscious of shit. Like here, we're traveling up, I'll get up to 100 knots before we get to the runway here. We're going to try to land right before the Pappy's here. And I'm not going to look at my airspeed indicator. And I'm going to try to tell you now, so we're just going 100 knots. I'm going to try to tell you when we're at 30, okay? What feels like 30. Okay, that feels like 30 to me. We're doing 60. So my sense of speed's very thrown off. 30, I'll show you what 30 actually looks like. 25. I'll get a 30 and kind of put myself in that same thing. But you can see this would be like danger speed here, but it feels like idling around, crawling slow. You know, and if you do a descent slightly too fast here, it can dump you really, really quick. Of course, this one I can catch it just because it's not a well set up model for that. But you get these weird senses of speed, and like, cool, I was just doing power applied, and I was just doing more than 300 feet per minute. And if you're not watching your gauges and you're not monitoring everything, it's extremely hard to get into, especially like monitoring your descent speed and everything, which here I'm not worried about torque or anything. It's the zero repercussion machine. So here, and I'll even give myself the time limit of like, cool, I need to guess my descent speed as we're going down. Like here, this seems like I'm doing slow, but I'm doing 400 feet per minute, which could put me in danger. What feels like a normal descent speed after flying at 100 knots feels like this. Like that feels like it could be normal. Like, okay, cool, we're still getting down with some sort of speed, but we're doing 600 feet per minute down. That's enough if you were in a helicopter that was modeled correctly here in the game, or just a helicopter in real life. You could put yourself in a settling with power or a vortex ring state situation because that descent speed was too much. Like I said, that's probably the worst habit that you can pick up from using a sim, learning how to fly and doing it without supervision or without consulting with a CFI. Of course, I taught myself how to fly on the sim when I got my license in real life. My biggest issue really was like, cool, I would fly out of trim just because like I flew what was feeling right, feeling good, feeling like I was pointing right, but I wasn't watching the gauges or the trim strings. Easy enough fix, but it's not a detriment. It just costs you more fuel and makes your passenger uncomfortable with the doors off. But the sending with power, or settling with power, vortex ring state, you know, too fast of the approaches, that's an issue people can have. Well, what we'll do, we'll jump over into a trainer, a 22, and I'll put it at max gross weight real quick. Put the parking brake on. Guess it doesn't work. Anyways, let's hop into a small helicopter and load her down real quick. Also, if anybody else is in here that's watching and they have questions, comments, concerns, please absolutely feel free to comment. I'm just here yapping endlessly, and the yapping endlessly will not stop, as I do not have an off switch. We're getting down here to Tom territory. Uh, 2222, where is it? Oh, that's right, it's over in Cowan Sim. And we'll add weight to it once we get in. And again, this one doesn't have the correct stuff modeled as far as things I've noticed about the R22 here. It seems to have more power than what it would in real life. I did download a revised handling model for this. Hey. So it does handle a little bit better than what the factory model did. It's like a $6 mod, not a bad deal. Let's see. Fuel, I want to be fueled up. Aircraft, 190. NEMI, 150. That's passenger. Load an aircraft. Fuel, we're at 1352. Yeah, that's good enough. Actually, let's go max gross. Load in aircraft. There we go. We're max gross weight. As heavy as we should ever be flying in this thing. Startup procedure. We have our master battery, and our strobe goes on. We're going to put our fuel down there. We're going to assume we've already done the pre-flight. Carb heat down, frictions off, throttles down, governor switches on. But I'm going to turn the governor switch off just because the simulator does some weird stuff sometimes. We twist the throttle a couple times for priming, or we'd miss the primer there. Not a thing here. That's starting to spin. Ooh, there we go. Gotta wait for the clutch light to go off. Sit here for a minute. The engine would also technically be warming up now, but the engine's warm. I'm familiar with the 22s, if people can't tell. The majority of my hours are in Le 22. Wait for me to take the doors off here in the menu. This lady stinks. There we go. Smells better now. Okay, so we'll do a full normal startup. So it's running. I've got my pedals guarded. We're going to bring our RPM to 70-75%, somewhere in this area. We're going to turn this down to one magneto at a time. So one there drags the RPM down. Turn it back to both. RPM stables. Put it back like 75%. Turn that down to just right. RPM drops. Back to both. Pull up carb heat. Carb heat's going up. The gauge moves there. Carb heat back down because it does get rid of power. We're going to roll up throttle. Snatch it off. And there should be a split in the needles right there like that. Usually it would happen earlier, but Sim doesn't model it good. Now that that's good, I'm going to turn the governor on. And technically, once the RPM, we'll see the governor light go off in a second. There we go. Once I turn the governor on, and once it gets above 80%, it should take over. In real life, it would. We'll see. I don't think I've ever actually tried it here. So usually in real life, it would take off and run with it, so I'm just going to give it to it. So anyways, there's that. RPM stabilizes. I'm going to roll down a little bit, so I got to take the governor off of that. You get it below 97%. There we go. If I can get low rotor RPM light, back up to 100, good to go. That's your startup procedure to Robinson R22. We're very heavy right now. And this lady. And what was I going to do? Here's somebody refresh my... There's 12 of you in here, which is wild for a Monday morning at 1:30 in the morning. Let's see. Okay, so also in the temperature, we're at 19.4 outside, so we're looking at like a 22.9 inches of manifold pressure that we can pull. I'm just trying to go off memory here, which means we'd be limiting how much power we can pull to about right here. We can go 0.9 more, so like 24.8 for 5-minute takeoff power. If we add carburetor heat, we can pull more power by about 1.5 inches, if I remember correctly. But we really don't have visible moisture here, so I'm not too worried about that. Pull up left pedal as we start to get light. It's too much left pedal. As you can see, we're rotating to the left. I'm more stable in the real helicopter. Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about now. Let's, actually, I want to fatten this up real quick. One more weight. Oh, we're heavy. Okay. So I was going to talk about power application upon landing. Okay, and so we have a whole bunch of new people in here, most likely, I assume. So when you're picking up, the helicopter wants to torque one way. So as you, it does say helicopter school or something in the thumbnail. So as you pick up on the helicopter, our blades are turning this way here, which means it wants to torque the body of the helicopter the opposite direction. That's why when we take off, we apply left pedal, because that helps us from, if I straighten up my pedals here, you can see my pedals are straight. If I pick up right now, we're going to get a lot of right turn. You see that? So you have to put left pedal in when you're taking off. And that was very aggressive, but just to prove the point. With that said, as you press left pedal, what left pedal does, if you watch, it rotates us this way. How does it rotate? It increases thrust in our rear tail rotor. That's saying it twice. But while it does that, that also means that since it's now thrusting us this way turning, it's also pushing the entire helicopter, translating it that way. So we also have to put in a little bit of left cyclic while picking up. So there's three things you got to do. You change one, it affects the other two. So it's kind of like a balancing act. So anyways, taking off left pedal too much, as you can see we're rotating there. Picking up a little bit of left leaning to keep us in the same spot. And there we go. Now I'm just slowly changing how much inputs I'm putting in, and my hands and feet are barely moving. I'm kind of thinking about which way I want the helicopter to go, and that's the direction that it's going to go. It does not require a lot of effort. So, why are we in the Robinson R22 when so many cool helicopters exist in this simulator? Because I want to kind of show power limitations on stuff. With us being extremely fat right now, I'm actually going to get up here next to the to our wind socket. I'm going to do it with a tailwind too. I want to put us in the worst situation because the game still doesn't do very good in the Robinson R22 for demonstrating weight and effects of weight. And headwinds usually help you take off, tailwinds can not, but it's still wind over the rotor system at the end of the day, so it doesn't matter as much. So yeah, 20, actually it wouldn't be 22 to 1, it'd be like 20, yeah, we'll say our max is 22 inches of manifold pressure that we can pull. So the max we can make this move, which as I move my collector, this will go up. We're going to try to stop it here at the 22 mark, and we're going to see how much vertical we can get out of this. As you see, I'm adding collective here, way down here on the left. You can see that gauge there moving. There's where our pickup point's kind of like around 20 or so. Here we're hovering at 21. And the max I can pull is 22. That's even kind of bouncing over a little bit right there. This is all we got. This is all the vertical that we are able to pull off, really. I can add a wee bit more. If I want to, I can pull like 0.9 for like a little bit of extra power. But still, we're going to hit a point to where we kind of level off, and this is as much vertical as we can get. And that's just because ground effect helps us out a little bit. And when we get out of the ground effect, progressively, the higher we get, we're going to lose the benefit of that. So now, obviously, you want to fly a helicopter going forward, for the most part. There's some situations you won't, obviously, for advanced maneuvers and jobs and work and stuff in the future. But when you're trying to get out of a hole somewhere, you're going to want to be moving forward as you go. So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to be aiming into the wind, because that's going to help our forward airspeed. I'm going to go to the same, like 21.9, 22. But I'm going to start going forward. And as I get forward airspeed, my rotor system becomes more efficient. And with that more efficient rotor system, I'm able to get more and more altitude without asking for any more power from the helicopter. And that would be considered a max performance takeoff right there, because I'm literally trying to keep our manifold pressure gauge at the absolute max for what would be allowed. We can also take off with much less than that as well. A lot of instructors will call it the painfully slow takeoff. Pilot examiners and tests and stuff, a lot of times they like to see that whenever you're doing normal flying. Whenever you're doing a confined area type thing and you're getting out of a hole, obviously you will need to do a max performance and be good at setting yourself up for that sort of thing. So a painfully slow, we can even do that without having enough power to get off the ground. So right now our hover power, if we try to get off the ground and just have like a 1-inch hover, we're using like 20 inches of manifold pressure here. So what I'm going to do, we're going to limit ourselves to 19 inches of manifold pressure. So here we're getting up to like 19. It's going to bounce a little over just because the game's going to bounce, but I'm letting it slide forward. And the sliding forward is giving us forward airspeed. And that forward airspeed is enough to get us off the ground without asking for any more power than what our limit would have been there. You can do the same thing for a run-on landing, because manifold pressure is also limited by what the external pressure, or the atmospheric pressure of whatever airport you're operating in. Here we're in Sunshine Coast, Australia. Coast being the key word. We're down at just a very, very low elevation. We're only at 250 foot above sea level right now. If that. I didn't even set the altimeter, but we're very, very near sea level, I can assure you that. If we're going up to 10,000 feet, every 1,000 feet that we go up, we're losing about 1 point of pressure. So a standard pressure day here, our standard atmospheric pressure is 29.92. If we go up to 10,000 feet, we are going down to 19.92, basically that 20 inches of manifold pressure. So we wouldn't be able to come in for a landing like this, and now watch my manifold pressure gauge down there. I wouldn't be able to come in and do a landing. Right now we're still good, but I wouldn't be able to do this. And come in like really doing a bad job of demonstrating it. But I wouldn't be able to get to a place where I'm adding that much power demand out of the helicopter. The amount of atmosphere doesn't exist. I can pull my collective as hard as I'd want to, and it will only get me to that 19 inches of manifold pressure. So you have to do a run-on landing to where you come in on the runway, and we'll do the same thing over here. I'll get up there real quick. And also I'm flying outside of the limits of the helicopter. That's how we got a low rotor RPM. That's why I'm at 28 inches of manifold pressure there, just because it's a rental. It's not going to break. We're demonstrating other stuff that's not related to that. It's like a run-on landing, which would also be if you're heavy. You know, if you're heavy, you might not be able to hover at whatever altitude that you're landing at. Me and this fat woman here, if we go up to like 6,000 feet, we wouldn't be able to hover with the amount of power that we have in ground effect. So like a run-on landing would be coming up to the runway. Of course, much more control than that. But as you're coming in for the landing, you would be doing this, and as soon as you get to like 19 inches or whatever, like you can't pull more, and you would just slow the helicopter down more and more and more, and let it slowly decrease lift, and you would do a run-on landing. So there's ways to fly when you're slightly out of your limits, and of course once Chunko over here gets out, I would have more performance, and I'd be able to get out easier and not have to skid around. But really, what I was talking about when we were leaving the sky crane and getting into this is that your descent speed, how much power the helicopter has, your forward airspeed, not trying to get into a settling situation. It can happen very, very quickly, and it's something that you do need to look out for. So my biggest issue when I fly is, like I said, I'm over here doing 80, 90 knots flying around with a little 22, and I get into the runway, and I'm wanting to land relatively quick, because I was just flying relatively quick. But you've got to be able to snap and get to a operate a much slower thing, especially in a lower performance helicopter where you cannot just come in and do stuff. So here's the way that I would like to fly my approaches. If physics did not exist, this is the way multi-shot mount would fly in real life, because I'd be a superhero, you know? Do whatever I want to. I would love to come in and be like, cool, I'm in a helicopter, I don't need to really worry about much. I can do this here, do a quick stop, come down, hit here, and flip over and go to my parking stall. You know, like, that would be optimal. But even though the helicopter is only 1,370 pounds at max gross weight, it's not a lot. It's max gross weight. The helicopter is not designed to operate at any more than that in safe limits. Is it capable of doing it? Sure, obviously. But in emergency situations, stress on different parts, balance of the helicopter forward and backward, you might not be able to auto-rotate if you have your weight too far forward. Because when you go to pull back on the cyclic to do your flare or whatever, it might not be good for you. You might not be able to pull back far enough to slow down. Or when you're on the ground hovering, you might just keep creeping forward. You might not be able to stop because you have too much weight far forward. Because Chunko here sitting next to me weighs too much. So the way the approaches should work as you go in, we're going to aim for the numbers here, right at the threshold. Doing 60 knots or so coming in, already way fast. This will end up being a pretty steep approach in. But here I'm already pulling in power to arrest my descent rate. This would be a steep approach into the numbers. And even then I'm still descending kind of fast. And you can see how slow this feels, even from just my turnarounds, fly over there, get back in pattern. This feels devastatingly slow. But that's how you have to do it. Because if you go in faster, in real life, it doesn't model it as well here, admittedly. You have to start pulling in power. When I say pulling power, I just mean adding collective way, way, way earlier than you expect you need to. You need to start slowing down a lot more than you think you need to. And even though that was a solid lower approach, steep descent sort of thing, we'll see if we can actually set up for a better standard approach. Because I'm in the simulator here, so you don't think about that as much, just because you're in a simulator. It's a zero repercussion machine. You don't have to worry about as much. Cool. So realistically, cool. 60 knots, 65 knots here. Coming in, this would still be about good. I'd be at a good height here. This is about a standard approach height. I'd be slowing down. I want to try to be at 30 knots or so by the time I'm getting to the threshold. I still want to be descending at like 300 feet per minute, but I don't want to go any faster than that because I don't want to have to arrest my descent more than I need to. Even then, here, I'm still going fast. This is still faster than what I want to be going. But I don't want to throw myself into a quick stop sort of thing. And here I'm already pulling in more collective than I think I need. And we're on a relatively cool day here. Hot, humid Georgia days like I've been flying. We're having to add power a lot sooner. And that's more of a standard approach path, which you can go faster than a steep approach because you still have some sort of forward airspeed that is your friend. But the simulator does a really, really good job of hiding that. So if you're doing a thing where you're learning simulator stuff or you're very consistent in a simulator, you really, really do need to consider flying in real life with your instructor, you know. Get yourself out of those habits. Like I said, one of my bad habits was flying in trim, which I think I might be able to change the panel here where you can see trim. Yeah, so trim would be this little white ball here on the attitude gauge. Shut up. And here, obviously, it feels like we're kind of flying with the nose facing to the left, which we are. But in the sim, it feels weird. In real life, or in the sim, this is what feels normal, but I'm out of trim doing this. And technically I'd be blowing the shit out of my instructor, no pun intended. No innuendo intended. No innuendo innuended. That's one thing my instructor got on me a lot about trim whenever we were flying. And that's just because here in the sim, like, you don't feel that. You feel like, cool, I'm flying straight ahead. That's what I need to be doing. It's not what you need to be doing. You need to be flying in trim, so you have to pay attention to that as you go. We're going to set up for an auto here. I think the elevation was like 200 feet per what our gauges here show. So we're going to get up to like 900, give us a 700 foot auto in. 65, 75 knots is what we're looking for. And it does seem to have a lot more inertia in the blade system here in the R22 in the game. In real life, there's an extreme lack of inertia. Oh yeah, this was another bad thing I did. So here in the game, I've got to like slam the throttle closed a few times, turn the governor off, and like really make it whatever. So it takes a while. So I'd usually, I'll talk you through what I'm doing now. I'm turning the throttle, trying to close it down, then I'm letting the collective down, and I'm catching the auto rotation glide slope there. So that was me turning the throttle off before I did any sort of lowering of the collective. In real life, that would be like training for an emergency landing where you lose engine at cruise. When you're training auto rotations, you do not want to turn your engine off first because the R22 has such a low inertia in the rotor system. Any sort of thing that you do that's going to affect the amount of remnant inertia that you do have, you want to preserve all you can for training. And the typical mantra, the cadence that the instructors will teach you is down, right, aft, close, or just down, right, aft, close, bump. And the bump just means like pulling the collective up just a little bit, because if it's all the way down, you may overspeed the rotor. But the down, right, aft is down the collective, right pedal, because you're getting rid of the torque that makes you need left pedal. And then aft on the cyclic, because you want to catch yourself in the auto rotation descending and not push into it and decay your rotor RPM. So down, right, aft, close, turn the throttle off, then bump the collective just a little to get the correct pitch and everything kind of initiated in. I screwed that up really, really bad for a while because I wasn't thinking about it, practiced a lot here in the sim, and me in the sim knowing like, oh man, I gotta slam the throttle close and I gotta do all this stuff to make it happen. So when I was going to go do a practice auto with my instructor, I turned the throttle off before or like during my lowering the collective, and it decayed the rotor RPM a lot, so he had to slam it down and pull aft on the cycle and save it. I don't think we were going to get in a bad situation, but it threw me off because I had no idea what I just did. I was like, no, I'm doing everything by the book. It's what's supposed to happen. Couldn't understand why. So I had to start adding bottom to my mantra as initiating on the auto rotations. Down, right, after, bottom, close, bump. Because it's a very fluid motion, you know, it's right here, and I don't have my web come up so you can't see, but as you push down the collective with your left hand, it's just kind of natural for you to want to roll off with it at the same time. But that's not what you want to do for an auto. You got to hit the bottom, close it, and then bump it up. So this would be more in line, and I might even be able to do it without us hearing the horn in here. So down, right, after, bottom, close, bump. There we go, the engine separated, and we didn't even hear the low rotor RPM horn because there was no low rotor RPM horn because I did it in the right thing, and auto rotations are extremely chill and a very uneventful maneuver as long as you're doing everything right. And of course we do power recovery ones where we kind of flare a little bit here, turn the throttle up, everything goes back together. I don't know why it overspeeds there. That's not how it would work in real life. Then we push forward and everything's married back up. We don't really do full down training because more people crash doing full down auto rotations than people that do auto rotations in real life. So it's like, hey, you know the process of it happening. We don't really need to teach you. Although I can't speak for commercial licensing and working on that currently. But we're not at the point where I need to start pushing to learn autos. I'm already very good at doing standard power recovery ones. Any questions, class? Y'all are very quiet. You know these floating artifacts, that's how you stuff yourself. Yeah, that's something we've noticed here flying in Australia, like all the street lights and signs and everything. They don't get picked up by the 3D building generation algorithm to delete. So like this billboard here next to the highway is still rendered in as a piece of ground. And there are some of these that are floating a couple 100 feet off the ground from like power poles and stuff like that. So I mean, you hit this when you're doing low-level flight and doing stuff, which obviously this one's big enough for you to see. But there are ones where, I mean, it's just like a couple of pixels wide where you just eat it. Like, there's some sunken ships off the Sunshine Coast. See, there we go, there's the contact there. See? Yeah. And also one thing I kind of wish was modeled here in the sim is a low G pushover. You can see it right here on our cyclic. Low G pushover prohibited. What? I can get rid of? Haha. You don't have controls, lady. You can't do a low G pushover. So like, let's say you're up here climbing, you can't go and do that. What that does, the helicopter's hanging from the semi-articulated, I think it's called semi-articulated. Instructors are going to hate me for it. I do not remember what the rotor system's called. It's a teetering hinge, like semi-rigid, yeah, teetering hinge semi-rigid rotor system. And basically, if you take the hanging weight off of the rotors, as in right now there's always a positive force pulling down and away from the main rotor, but doing something like you're climbing here, then you push over and you get a negative G. That negative G, what it does, it no longer makes the it no longer makes the helicopter hang from the rotor system, and at that point a couple of aerodynamic forces kind of go against you. The rotor is going to continue spinning and flying. Let's just say it's in a straight line. But as we talked about on the ground earlier, your tail rotor here is pushing you this way. So as your rotor's trying to go straight, your helicopter's doing this underneath of it. And then also, because it's not on a completely center axis, it's going to kind of tilt the body of the helicopter that way. And that's going to do a thing called a mast bump, which well, that's not going to do it, technically. It'll make you feel like you're going like this, so you do this move to correct it when you feel that. And that's what causes the mast bump, because that creates a larger angle of separation between what the rotor is doing and what the mast is doing, which is connected to your helicopter body itself. And the mast bump is a pretty sharp force of metal on metal, which they have a rubber bumper up there, but still metal on metal creates a lot of stresses and stuff. And it can crack your main drive shaft, your main mast, going up to your main rotor, and shear it. And like we were just doing, auto rotations, obviously if I lose engine power, like I can still come down here and do an auto rotation and land. I'm auto rotating right now. We're still flying. We're descending, but we're still flying. If you don't have a main rotor, still flying is no longer a thing that's happening. You're now falling. You are the brick that most people think that helicopters turn into whenever they do end up crashing. Even smart scientists, people, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he thought it too. Like, oh man, if a helicopter loses an engine, it's a brick. No, we can auto-rotate, and I can auto-rotate into a pretty small area, given the situation where I would need to. Versus an airplane, they need a runway, they need a road, they need a field, they need something I can put it down in a street or a modest backyard if necessary. But most people watching this understand helicopter aerodynamics, at least to an extent, so that's not a big deal for you. What other things do we need to talk about, guys? Chat, help me out. I'm not a CFI, so I can only think of so much to yap about at the moment. I am partially training for CFI. Priority right now is training instrument, but CFI is on my list of things that I am going to be getting soon. I will start. Whoa, there was a shifting wind right there. I did not do anything different. Also, V&E is not modeled here. If you get over what your max speed is, technically you would get a thing called retreating blade stall. Our blades are spinning to the left. So, as the blade's advancing, or to the left, they're going counterclockwise. As the advancing blade's going, it's still going fast enough to create lift, but as we go fast enough this way, as the blade's going this way, it stalls. So you lose lift on your left side. So here, going 110 knots or whatever, technically the helicopter would do something like along the lines of this, and we would die. Ooh, I still had a pretty sharp input there. So, retreating blade stall is not something you really want to fuck with. I've never experimented with it. Don't really care to. It's a lot easier to experiment at altitude because you can get to it easier without really having to push the helicopter to get to like crazy speeds. And apparently you can also feel the onset of it too. You'll start noticing some discrepancies and like a little bit of feeling of like a loss of lift, so it's not too hard just to pull back the cyclic and lower the collective a little bit, because if you decrease the pitch on it, you're decreasing its need or its ability to be demanding for pitch. A blade with no pitch can't stall. It may be going slow enough to not really be creating a lot of lift, but if you have a lot of pitch in there, it will stall because it's science. It's 1:54 in the morning. I'm legitimately not able to explain it right now. Been a long day. Also, there are 13 of you guys in here right now, at least what I'm seeing. Feel free to like and subscribe. I do this a good bit. Used to. I need to do it more. If I have more people watching, obviously it makes me want to come in here more and do it. Like, subscribe. We've had people commenting, so that's nice. But looks good for the channel, invites and encourages more people to come watch. And I do need to finish up. We have an Around the World series that I started last summer. I work in the film industry, so my schedule is wild. The show I worked on came back to life, so I worked on that all fall, winter, and spring. And then this summer came around, I got back into flight training again, chasing instrument and commercial. So it's made me not want to fly as much. But currently we're in England. We just need to do our Atlantic crossing. We'll do that down in North America, but I do plan on hopping to South America just so that we can say that we hit all the real continents, because we all know Antarctica does not exist. Could be a joke, maybe. But that Around the World series is going to get finished up. We also do some medical role-play stuff where I'll set up different places and things to bounce around to, and it'll be more at-home navigating. The Around the World series is kind of just like we have a direction of which way we need to go, and we're not too particular on trying to be accurate getting there. But the medical series lets us fly and do a lot of the helipad rooftop landings, getting into different places and situations and doing it with better helicopters than the R-22, obviously. I've done a VIP series that we kind of do on and off as I want to, where it's like I don't want to pretend to be doing medical stuff, so we'll do it just like we're picking up people, moving them around, kind of like a chartered operation. And then just generic flying around and talking technical or bullshitting, or if a scenario happens or somebody comes out with a new helicopter model to fly with it. Like we'll talk about a lot of that stuff. You know, it's just something that I enjoy doing. I feel like I'm pretty decent at flying, and yeah, we can do things. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing down. We'll do a shutdown as I'm saying goodbye here. Also, on that push forward on the landing, I could have pushed forward much earlier, but decided not to. So really what we would do here in real life, so we did a real start, so we'll do a real shutdown too. We have 70-75% for cooldown. We'll do that for 3 minutes. I'm not going to wait 3 minutes because these temperature gauges are not going to move as is. They're kind of set there in their ways. But we would wait for this one for about 2 to 3 minutes to get below that 3 on the gauge for the cylinder head temperatures. Once that's down for about a 2.5 to 3 minute turn, then we roll the throttle all the way down and we disconnect the clutch, and we wait 30 seconds for that, and the engine will start decoupling itself from the clutch slowly. It's like a minute process. As we're doing that and waiting, we take our guard off, we wait, and when we have about 30 to 45 seconds into the clutch disengaging, we pull the mixture up, and that will shut down the engine there. As you can see, all the lights came on, alternator goes off, the nav lights go off, we can turn the key. Oop, no, I don't want you there. We can turn that all the way off, and the clutch will continue disengaging for another 30 seconds or so after that point. And then we start slowly applying the rotor brake once the clutch disengages. As we can see, the clutch lights out. And then I would stop the blade here, but that's kind of impossible to do when it's an on-off switch like it is there. You can modulate it in real life. Leave the strobe lights on. Doesn't hurt anything. Turn the master battery off. And then usually we do like a little post-flight just to make sure there's no weird damages or anything like that. Make sure there's no leaks. Can I stick my head in here? Is there anything? No. So check for leaks in the fuel lines. Make sure there's no weird things going on with like the fuel line going into the carburetor. Make sure that our nut here on the back of the cooling fan is still lined up if we were doing autos in case we overspeeded it. Check the oil and stuff there. There's also tail rotor gearbox oil that we look at in a sight glass there. And there's also like main rotor gearbox oil, tele temps on the different gearboxes and transmissions and stuff. But yeah, that's a 22 flight. But anyways, like I said, it's 2 o'clock a.m. here. We kind of touched on a lot of stuff. Yeah, like, subscribe, come back. Even if we're doing a fly around the world episode, or a medical episode, or a VIP episode, I still will give pointers and talks where if you guys are flying in the sim or flying in real life or whatever, I'll gladly give pointers. Of course, I'm not a real CFI, so for your real life flying, ask a CFI. Not there yet. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to get out of here. Gotta take the dog out. Gotta brush my teeth. Gotta get to bed. Gotta do all that stuff. But for a very impromptu starting at 11 o'clock at night stream, I think we did pretty good. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you.